Steelbone's scavenger vessel, the Iron Wraith, creaked and groaned as it sliced through the sluggish waves of the toxic sea. The noxious water churned around them, bubbling with chemical effervescence and the faint hum of submerged machinery. Every breath was a reminder of the peril they faced, not just from the environment, but from what lurked beneath. Kael stood at the helm, his lean frame rigid despite the weariness etched deep into his weathered face. His dark hair, streaked prematurely with grey, fluttered in the acidic breeze. He squinted into the greenish fog that swallowed the horizon, searching for signs of the forbidden waters. An expanse whispered about in Steelbone's alleys, a place where few dared to tread. Here, the rules of survival were rewritten, and every mistake could mean the end. "We're close," Joran said softly from behind Kael, his cracked glasses catching the flicker of the dim lanterns hung along the deck. His pale fingers clutched a weathered map, worn at the edges but still legible. The currents matched the readings in the ancient schematics. Mira paced nearby, her fiery red hair a stark contrast against the muted colors of the ship. Her green eyes scanned the dense fog, sharp and alert. "Too close," she muttered, voice tight. "This sea wants to swallow us whole." Kael didn't reply immediately. He was lost in thought, fingers twitching as if already manipulating unseen gears. The memories of past losses his family lost to toxic storms, the weight of failed promises pressed on him like the heavy air around them. But he stood firm, the captain's resolve steeling him against the creeping dread. "Prepare for mechanical scouts," Graf's gruff voice interrupted the silence. The engineer stood near the weapon racks, his broad shoulders tense beneath his patched jacket. "They've been spotted beneath us." The crew snapped into action. Tess, young and nimble, darted to the crow's nest, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. Lena moved quietly among the crew, her satchel of herbs and medkits at the ready. The atmosphere buzzed with nervous energy, the kind born from facing death but refusing to yield. Suddenly, the water erupted. From the murky depths, mechanical beasts surfaced, hulking monstrosities pieced together from rusted scrap and glowing with ominous red lenses. Their limbs scraped the hull, their metallic joints creaking like the groan of a dying engine. The creatures circled, hunting, probing for weakness. Mira's voice cut through the tension. "Positions now." The crew scrambled to their stations. Kael's hands moved with practiced precision, firing warning shots that sparked against the beast's armor. Grav readied heavy weapons, while Joran monitored electronic signals, calling out patterns and weaknesses. Lena's calm presence steadied the crew's nerves, her voice a soothing undercurrent beneath the chaos. Despite the fear, a fierce determination blossomed. This was their home's salvation or its doom. The Iron Wraith danced through the toxic waves, dodging snapping jaws and spiked limbs. The crew's unity, fragile yet unbroken, became their shield. Later, in the cramped cabin lit by flickering lamps, Kael and Mira faced each other. The air was thick with unsaid fears and the weight of command. "We pushed too far," Mira said, frustration lacing her words. This could be the end. Kael's eyes met hers, sharp and unwavering. "If we don't push, there is no hope. Steelbone crumbles while we wait." A tense silence stretched between them, a clash of wills tempered by mutual respect. They both bore scars, visible and invisible, and both knew the stakes. Joran traced the route on the map again, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "The artifact lies just beyond this stretch. We must trust each other to see this through." Lena placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, a silent pledge of support. As the Iron Wraith edged deeper into the forbidden waters, The toxic fog thickened. The mechanical beasts disappeared momentarily beneath the waves, but their menace lingered. The crew braced themselves, hearts pounding in unison. The journey was far from over. Amid the swirling mists and the ceaseless hum of the toxic sea, hope flickered like a fragile flame, refusing to be extinguished. The crew of the Iron Wraith stood together, a found family bound by survival and fierce determination. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The city, a jigsaw of battered scrap and flickering lights, groaned softly beneath the weight of its own fragility. Somewhere deep within the labyrinth of metal and pipes, the engines coughed and sputtered, their failing heartbeat a reminder of the city's precarious existence. On the edge of this drifting world, Kael sat hunched over a worn piece of machinery, his eyes shadowed, hands stained with grease and blood. Lena approached quietly, her footsteps light against the creaking deck, a satchel of herbs slung over her shoulder. She knelt beside him, her fingers gentle as she wrapped a cloth around a fresh bruise on his knuckles. "You're pushing too hard," she murmured, her voice soft but firm. Kael looked up, meeting her steady gaze. "If I don't fix this, we all sink." His voice was rough, edged with exhaustion, but laced with an unyielding determination. Lena's eyes softened, reflecting the flickering light of the lamps that struggled to hold back the darkness. "You don't have to carry this alone," she said, her words a bomb to the silent storm raging within him. The two sat in companionable silence, the distant hum of the sea a constant backdrop. Slowly, Lena began to speak of her past, the communal gardens where she had grown up, a place of life and color amidst the decay. Her voice wove stories of hope and healing, of hands that nurtured not only wounds but spirits. Kael listened, the sharp edges of his guarded heart beginning to soften. When it was his turn, he shared fragments of his own story, the storms that had stolen his family, the bitter guilt that had driven him into the shadows of leadership. For the first time in years, vulnerability passed between them like a fragile thread binding to wounded souls. As the night deepened, the pair moved to the city's edge, where the toxic sea stretched out beneath a sky bruised with the colors of a distant storm. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and metal, the horizon flickering with restless shadows. Kael's gaze was fixed on the churning waters, memories rising like ghostly waves. Lena stood beside him, her presence steady and reassuring. No words were needed. Their shared silence spoke volumes of loss, of survival, and of the fragile hope that still flickered within Steelbone's battered heart. Suddenly, a distant howl shattered the quiet, the unmistakable cry of mechanical beasts prowling the city's outskirts. The sound was a jarring reminder of the threats that lurked beyond their fragile sanctuary. Kael's jaw clenched, and Lena's hand found his shoulder. In that moment, their bond was a shield against the encroaching darkness, a testament to the fierce, bittersweet determination that defined their lives. "We'll face them together," Lena said firmly, the conviction in her voice echoing the unspoken promise between them. Kael nodded, the weight on his shoulders feeling a little lighter. Together, they turned back toward the heart of Steelbone, ready to fight for the city and the found family they had forged amidst the shifting scrap and endless sea. The echoes of loss lingered, yet within them stirred the seeds of renewal, a fragile but unbreakable hope that even in the face of desolation, survival was possible. And as the night held its breath, the two leaders stood united, their shared strength a beacon against the gathering storm. The hull, once a mighty vessel now claimed by rust and decay, lay half submerged, its silhouette a ghostly reminder of a lost age. Kael stood at the prow of their makeshift submersible, eyes narrowed against the filtered gloom, his lean frame rigid with focus. Around him, the murmurs of the crew mingled with the faint hum of the vessel's engines, struggling to maintain position above the wreck. "Keep tight, stay sharp." Kael's voice broke the heavy silence, steady and commanding. Mira, fiery and alert, tightened her grip on her weapon, her piercing green eyes scanning the darkened waters. Joran adjusted his cracked glasses, clutching a waterproofed satchel filled with ancient schematics and tools, his pale face etched with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Lena moved calmly among them, the ever-present satchel of herbs and bandages slung over her shoulder, ready to heal the inevitable wounds this perilous dive would bring. Grav, broad-shouldered and scarred, checked the heavy weapons one last time, his gruff demeanor masking the tension knotting his muscles. The submersible's hatch hissed open, and the crew slipped into the murky water, swallowed instantly by the wreck's oppressive darkness. Shafts of sickly green light filtered through cracks in the hull, illuminating twisted metal and shattered bulkheads. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant creaks of the hull settling under pressure and the rhythmic pulse of their own breathing through regulators. Navigating the wreck's labyrinthine corridors demanded every ounce of their skill and courage. Joran led with lantern in hand, illuminating faded inscriptions and rusted control panels. His fingers traced ancient symbols etched deep into corroded steel, his voice hushed as he shared his discoveries. This vessel was part of the old fleet. The artifact it carried was said to control the balance of the toxic sea itself. If we find it, we might restore more than just Steelbone's engines. Kael's gaze darkened, shadows of past losses flickering behind his eyes. We don't get second chances. Whatever awaits us, we face it together. The deeper they ventured, the more oppressive the air grew, with the scent of rust and decay, the weight of forgotten history pressing in on them. Suddenly, a low mechanical hum vibrated through the corridor, growing louder until the sound coalesced into a terrifying roar. From the shadows emerged a spider-like mechanical guardian, its metallic legs scraping the rusted floor with deadly precision, eyes glowing an ominous red. "Ambush!" Mira shouted, drawing her weapon with practiced speed. The crew scattered, taking defensive positions amid the wreck's twisted steel. Lena moved swiftly, her voice steady as she called out, "Kael, cover the left flank. Grav, hold the rear." The battle was fierce and chaotic. Sparks flew as metal clashed with metal, the Guardian's claws slicing through the air with lethal intent. Grab's heavy weaponry roared to life, hurling explosive rounds that rocked the wreck's fragile structure. Joran darted between cover, deploying improvised EMP devices designed to disrupt the beast's circuits. Myra's tactical mind shone through the chaos, directing the crew with sharp commands and unyielding resolve. Minutes stretched into an eternity before the mechanical guardian collapsed, its systems failing amidst the crew's relentless assault. Breathing heavily, the scavengers regrouped, wounds tended and weapons readied. Ahead lay the sealed chamber housing the artifact. The faint glow emanating from within promised salvation, but also new mysteries. Joran stepped forward, his hands steady despite exhaustion. This is only the beginning. The artifact's power is tied to the very essence of this sea. If we can unlock its secrets, we can save Steelbone. Kael's eyes met those of each crew member, a fierce determination burning bright. Then we take it. For our city, for our family. As they prepared to breach the chamber's defenses, the wreck groaned ominously, the sea pressing in from all sides. The journey had tested them beyond measure, but the true trial was still to come. Their fate and that of Steelbone rested on what lay beyond the next door. With a final nod, Kael reached out to activate the ancient controls. The the chamber slowly creaking open to reveal the artifact's enigmatic core, pulsating with an eerie light. The crew held their breath, the weight of hope and peril heavy upon their shoulders. And in that moment, the toxic sea outside seemed to hold its breath as well. Steelbone's battered vessel creaked and groaned as it drifted closer to a looming silhouette on the horizon, a rusted barge, pieced together from scrap and adorned with tattered flags that fluttered weakly in the foul wind. The barge was a beacon amidst the desolation, a sign that other souls still dared to navigate the treacherous, toxic waters beyond the city's fragile safety. Kael stood at the prow, his sharp eyes scanning the approaching vessel. The air was thick with the acrid stench of rust and chemical decay, the sea beneath swirling with ominous currents that threatened to pull them under. Beside him, Myra's fiery red hair whipped wildly as she clenched her fists, her piercing green eyes burning with suspicion. Joran remained close to the engine room hatch, nervously adjusting the cracked glasses perched on his slender nose, while Lena moved among the crew, her satchel of herbs and supplies a small comfort against the unknown. Grav, ever watchful, tightened the straps on his heavy weaponry, muscles tensed like a predator ready to spring. The barge drew near, its patchwork hull creaking and groaning, metal plates rattling against one another. From its deck emerged a figure cloaked in layers of weathered fabric, face shadowed beneath a hood. Silver, the elusive merchant and informant, stepped aboard Steelbone's vessel with the cautious grace of someone who had learnt to survive through guile and instinct. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, flickered with a cunning that immediately set the crew on edge. "Captain Kael," Silver greeted, voice low and smooth, carrying the weight of countless secrets. "I hear you're chasing ghosts beyond the forbidden waters." Kael nodded, his expression guarded. "And you're the one who might hold the keys to finding them." The exchange was cautious, words measured and sharp. Silver laid out her terms with practiced precision, Rio parts salvaged from the sea's depths, information about rival scavenger factions, and crucial hints about the artifact's possible location. In return, she demanded access to supplies and a share of whatever the crew might claim. Mira's tension was palpable as she bristled beside Kael, fingers twitching near the grip of her weapon. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" Silver's smile was a slow, dangerous curve. "Trust is a luxury in these waters, Scout. But even enemies sometimes need allies." The night deepened as the crew and Silver's faction negotiated under the flickering light of a single lantern. The air was thick with distrust, each word a test of wills, each silence pregnant with threat. Joran, clutching ancient schematics that Silver had procured, traced faded lines and symbols, his quiet intellect piecing together fragments of a story long buried beneath the toxic waves. "This changes everything," he murmured, eyes alight with newfound purpose. "We're closer than we thought." Yet the victory was bittersweet. The alliance with Silver brought with it shadows, whispers of betrayals, hidden agendas, and the ever-present danger of the Warden's reach extending through the murky waters. As dawn approached, the barge slipped away, leaving Steelbone's crew to grapple with the consequences of their choice. On their vessel's deck, they gathered silently, the toxic sea stretching endlessly before them, vast expanse of peril and possibility. Kael's gaze hardened with resolve. "We move forward, together, but eyes wide open." Myra nodded, her fiery spirit tempered by the night's lessons. No one gets left behind. The wind carried their words into the toxic haze, a promise forged in uncertainty and danger. Their journey was far from over, the path ahead fraught with enemies and uneasy alliances. Yet, amid the desolation, a fragile hope flickered, one born of survival, trust, and the unbreakable bonds of found family. And as Steelbone's battered vessel cut through the toxic waves once more, the crew prepared to face whatever shadows lurked beyond the horizon. The air hung thick with the metallic temps of burning circuits and scorched scrap, a grim herald of the storm to come. Kael stood at the edge of their encampment, eyes narrowed beneath furrowed brows as he scanned the horizon. There was no mistaking the sound that shattered the uneasy silence, the shrill, mechanical screech of the Warden's beasts, a sound that chilled the marrow and quickened the pulse. "They're coming," Mira said, her voice a mix of fire and steel as she tightened the straps on her gear, her vivid red hair pulled back into a fierce knot. "And this time, it's worse." Kael's jaw clenched. "We knew this was coming. We prepared for it, didn't we?" "Prepared or not, we're outnumbered," Mira replied, her green eyes flashing as she scanned the approaching shadows. The Wardens brought new machines, bigger, faster, deadlier. The first wave crashed into their camp like a tidal wave of rusted steel and glowing red lenses. Mechanical beasts tore through makeshift barricades, their claws ripping through scrap and bone alike. The ground trembled beneath the assault, the toxic sea's distant roar drowned out by the cacophony of metal grinding and explosive blasts. Kael barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Grav, hold the east flank. Lena, tend the wounded. Mira, with Meeb, push them back." Grav's deep growl of acknowledgement was lost in the roar, but his heavy footsteps thundered as he positioned his heavy weapons, fingers steady despite the chaos. Lena moved swiftly, her satchel of herbs and mechanical first aid supplies a lifeline amidst the carnage. Her gentle hands worked miracles on shattered limbs and scorched flesh, her soothing words a balm against the rising tide of panic. Myra was a whirlwind of motion, her combat skills honed to lethal precision as she darted between enemies, disabling mechanical limbs and striking vulnerable joints. Yet even her fiery resolve wavered beneath the relentless onslaught. Amid the fray, Joran crouched beside a battered relic, his slender fingers tracing the faded lines of a glowing schematic barely visible beneath layers of corrosion. His cracked glasses reflected the flickering fires around him. "Kael," he called out urgently, voice strained but steady. "There's something here, something the Warden doesn't want us to find." Kael's sharp eyes met Joran's. "What is it?" "A pattern code embedded in the artifact's design. I think it's a key, a way to control or disable the beasts, if we can decipher it in time." The words hung like a fragile hope amid the storm of destruction. The Warden emerged from the shadows, a towering figure clad in patchwork armor of metal plates, his glowing red lenses piercing the gloom like malevolent stars. His voice was a low, grinding growl carried through static and mechanical distortion. "You will not take what is mine," he declared, his presence casting a shadow over the battlefield. "This sea, these beasts, they belong to me." Kael met his gaze without flinching. "Steelbone will survive. You won't stop us." The Warden snarled, unleashing a fresh wave of mechanical enforcers that surged forward with deadly precision. The crew fought back with every ounce of strength and cunning, their unity forged in the fires of hardship now tested to its limits. Amid the chaos, Lena knelt beside a wounded crew member, her hands steady despite the tremors of fear. "Hold on," she whispered, her voice a beacon of warmth. "We're not leaving anyone behind." Mira returned from a skirmish, breath ragged but eyes blazing. "We can't keep this up much longer. We need a plan, Kael." Kael's mind raced, torn between the immediate battle and the cryptic clues Joran had uncovered. "Joran, what do you need to unlock that code?" "Time and quiet," Joran replied, his voice barely audible over the din. "Then we give you that time," Kael said, determination hardening his features. "Everyone else, hold the line. We fight not just for Steelbone, but for each other." The battle raged on, a brutal symphony of metal and fire, trust and sacrifice. As the Warden's wrath bore down, the crew's resolve burned brighter, a fierce light against the encroaching darkness. In the heart of the storm, Kael understood that survival was no longer just about endurance. It was about unity, hope, and the unyielding will to face whatever fury the sea and its tyrant could unleash. And as the first flickers of dawn threatened the toxic horizon, the question remained: would their strength be enough to withstand the Warden's fury, or would Steelbone's legacy be lost beneath the endless scrap and poison sea? The answer lay just beyond the battle, waiting to be claimed.